Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are going to completely rethink how we educate the next generation. Now, we all want to help the young minds in our lives learn and grow, right? But what if the very foundation of how we view teaching is based on a fundamental illusion? We're going to unpack some really fascinating source material today that challenges everything we think we know about passing down information. Let's get into it.
Section 1, the knowledge transfer myth.
Okay, let's dive right into this. In physics, current flows smoothly from a higher potential to a lower one. And in our everyday lives, if we want to transfer water, we just pour it from a full jug into an empty glass. Because these physical transfers are just so incredibly intuitive, we naturally assume learning works the exact same way. We think knowledge transfer is just pouring facts from a full adult brain into an empty child's brain. But the source material makes it crystal clear. Knowledge simply doesn't work that way. You literally cannot just pour it in.
I want to emphasize the sheer gravity of this direct quote from the text. A more knowledgeable person cannot transfer it to a less knowledgeable person. That completely shatters the whole empty vessel theory of education. You cannot simply hand somebody your understanding. You can speak the words, you can show them the equations, but the knowledge itself, it absolutely refuses to be copy-pasted, which forces us to ask a pretty huge question. If I can't just transfer my knowledge to a child, how on earth do they actually learn?
Section 2, how knowledge actually grows.
Think about it on a macro level for a second. If knowledge was a pure, perfect top-down transfer, society would completely stagnate. I mean, if every child flawlessly absorbed exactly what the adult poured into them and absolutely nothing else, we would just endlessly repeat the actions of earlier generations. There'd be no innovation, no breaking boundaries. We'd just be stuck on this continuous, endless loop of the past.
And this brilliantly illustrates how human progress actually happens. True progress doesn't just replace the old, it rides on earlier knowledge. The current generation takes what the past generation did, builds upon it, and here's the kicker, at times entirely contradicts it. That contradiction is what sparks discovery. It absolutely requires the next generation to look at what we've given them, question it, and forge an entirely new path. This builds into such a beautifully empowering concept. Because children are the next generation, they are naturally meant to exceed the limitations of our current understanding. They aren't supposed to be carbon copies of us. They're fundamentally designed to reach for stars we haven't even seen yet. Basically, our ceiling is meant to be their floor.
Section 3, the mechanics of learnability.
So let's shift to the micro level, the human mind. The source material introduces this brilliant concept called learnability. Since we've established that knowledge transfer is an illusion, the real magic has to happen through the internal process of learning. And the absolute non-negotiable prerequisites for this are the individual's ability and their willingness. If a child is not willing to learn, no amount of top-down teaching is going to force that knowledge into their head. True learnability strictly requires the individual to be an active, willing participant.
This is a massive paradigm shift. Learnability isn't just about raw innate intelligence or IQ. It is fundamentally behavioral in nature. It's a trait, it's a habit, it's a way of interacting with the world that actually needs to be evolved within the child's mind. It's all about cultivating the behavior of asking questions, seeking answers, and staying persistent. So you aren't just teaching math or history, right? You're teaching the behavior of learning itself.
So the crucial point is, this definitely doesn't happen overnight. The source explicitly points out that this fundamental behavioral process of learnability has to be inculcated from the very early years and systematically supported all the way until the child turns 21. It requires a really long-term, sustained environment that nurtures their cognitive development straight into young adulthood.
Section 4, the guide's true task. Now let's talk directly to you, the parents, the guides, the teachers. First, we have to recognize the modern roadblocks that impede a child's natural learnability. Far too often, this vital evolution is wrongly outsourced entirely to schools, or just left totally to chance. But institutions alone can't guarantee a child's willingness to learn. On top of that, we live in a world packed with digital distractions, and honestly, every child learns differently. Navigating this winding path requires active, intentional guidance. You can't just passively delegate this.
Which leads us to the true core task of the parent or guide. You must ensure that learnability and curiosity are involved in the child. That is your primary mission. It's not about spoon-feeding them every single historical date or math formula. It's about systematically cultivating their curiosity. It's about fanning the flames of their willingness to learn and ensuring that fire burns brightly despite all those distractions we just talked about.
And when you do that successfully, you arrive at this beautifully empowering realization straight from the text. The child can handle the rest. Just take a second and think about that. Once you ignite that internal drive, once that behavioral trait of learnability is firmly established, the child's mind is fully capable of navigating the rest of their educational journey. They're going to seek out the knowledge, they'll challenge the old paradigms, and they will build the future.
This really changes everything about how we approach education, doesn't it? It completely removes the impossible pressure of having to somehow transfer everything we know and replaces it with the profound responsibility of being a true guide for curiosity. Which leaves us with the exact provocative question posed by our source material today. Want to know how to do this as a parent, guide, or teacher? How do you actually build that learnability day by day? Well, that is the incredible journey of discovery you get to embark on next. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this fresh perspective transforms the way you guide the learners in your life.